Hey guys, it's Amanda here and welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited to share today's video with you guys. If you were at my live stream on Tuesday, then you actually saw me create this piece, and this was a very spur of the moment kind of illustration. I was on vacation this past weekend and I was kind of out of the range of a lot of cell service, so I was roughing it for a couple days. And I did a lot of sketching and I loved it. I kind of came up with this idea and got really excited about it. So as soon as I got back, I knew this was one of the pieces that I wanted to work on immediately. And so if you can't already tell, this is a Game of Thrones fan art piece because the new season starts this Sunday. Oh my gosh. Thumbs up if you are excited about the new season of Game of Thrones. I'm also sorry about my phone. I don't know why I didn't move it out of the view of camera when I was done using the reference. That was my bad. But I knew I wanted to do a Game of Thrones fan art piece. And in a sketch... excuse me, oh my gosh, in a sketchbook update that I will be releasing in a couple of weeks, you'll see some of the very first rough concept sketches that I ever did for part of the Game of Thrones piece that I wanted to do. And initially I wanted to do all of the Stark children, and just a little preface for this video, if you haven't watched Game of Thrones and you want to watch Game of Thrones, I'm going to try and keep the spoilers to a minimum. I do want to talk a little bit about my predictions for the upcoming season, but I will give you a fair warning to either mute the audio or exit out of the video if you don't want anything kind of spoiled for you, I guess. So originally I wanted to do a fan art piece featuring all of the Stark children, particularly Sansa, Arya, and Bran. And then I thought, well, I know I want to draw Jon Snow because he's, a fan favorite, obviously, and he plays a little bit of a role in my fan theory predictions. So I wanted to draw Jon Snow, and then I wanted to kind of draw Daenerys Targaryen as for part of the same reason, but drawing all 5 of them together not only felt like it was going to be way overwhelming, but I didn't really feel like they all fit, So instead, I stuck with just drawing Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen, or Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, whatever you want to say. So yeah, that's what I decided to do, and I thought that these two in particular paired really well together. And the way that I kind of laid out the illustrations is that Jon Snow is looking one direction, and then he has the silhouette of his wolf behind him, and then Daenerys Targaryen is looking the opposite direction with the silhouette of her dragon. So I thought that was really cool because they both have two creatures that they kind of strongly identify with, and that was one of the reasons that I actually wanted to do Bran as well, because he has the raven, but Sansa and Arya didn't really have animal counterparts that they could really identify with. So that's ultimately why I ended up cutting back to just Jon and Daenerys. So yeah, and the sketches themselves were simple. I kept the sketches true to what they were in my sketchbook, and I didn't have any reference when I sketched them out. I did these rough concept sketches in a different sketchbook that I didn't have with me when I was out of cell service range, whatever. So I kind of made up their likeness off the top of my head, and I ended up really liking the way that they looked, so I just kind of stuck with that, and I didn't mess with that formula too much. And just a quick note, I am coloring both Jon and Daenerys before I go into the backgrounds, and sorry I didn't record the first part of me coloring Daenerys' skin. I missed a couple parts during the filming process here and there, but the whole thing was on live stream, so I guess if you really felt compelled to, you could go to the live stream and just speed that up or something. And just a note, if you guys ever do want to rewatch my live streams, I have them all in an unlisted playlist, so you can go to my channel, go under playlist, and all of them are there, but I don't have them listed publicly, just to kind of keep my channel clutter free. Anyway, we're getting off topic. I really like the way that I colored the skin for both Jon and Daenerys in this video. And I feel like I kind of had a revelation about how I color skin. And if you guys want to see like a video or a tutorial on how I do that, I would love to go in depth about that. I am still going to be doing my like in-depth coloring and drawing breakdown where it's more like real time, not as sped up, and I'm going to be more like talking you through my process. But for skin in particular, I feel like that could almost be like a standalone video, you know? So if you guys want to see how I color my skin, I feel like previously when I color skin, it's turned out really, really muddy. And that's not the case with this. And I don't know if maybe it's because I've changed the paper that I've been using. I've been using a lot of cardstock lately, and it's been a game changer. Like, cheap, inexpensive cardstock is like my new favorite paper to work on. I don't know why. But you can tell sort of the overall color scheme in this piece has a lot of blue for both of them. Even though there's two parts to it, I kind of consider them like two parts of the same whole. Like they're still like the same singular piece. There's just like two parts to them, if that makes sense, because they are so like parallel, you know? So, I wanted to add a lot of blue undertones to both these characters because I feel like blue is a character that represents both of them really well. Like blue is very cold for Jon Snow, and then blue's kind of one of Daenerys's most commonly worn colors. Plus, she, you know, her eyes are blue, and so I feel like blue just kind of made sense. And when I get to the background, I end up keeping the silhouettes of the creatures, the wolf and the dragon, I end up keeping those white. And to do that, I use a little bit of masking fluid, which you can see me using here. This does slightly stain the paper, ever so slightly. And I probably could have left it and nobody would have noticed, but I end up kind of going around the silhouettes with a white calligraphy ink later on in the piece, just to kind of clean that up and add a little bit more detail. So the silhouettes are white, and then the background is like this dark blue to kind of aqua gradient, and it's really loose and it's really messy, and I like the way that it turned out. I think it's fitting really, really well. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my little fan theories and sort of my concept behind this piece now. So if you're not interested in being like hearing Game of Thrones spoilers, or you haven't seen the end of last season, mute the video or exit out now. I won't mind. But that's what I'm going to talk about, because I only have a few minutes left in the video, and that's what I want to talk about. So the two parts of this piece have half of a quote, so like two halves of like a quote, right? So Jon Snow's half of the quote says, "A man who knows nothing, ... And then Daenerys's part of the piece says, "cannot rule alone." So the full quote is, "A man who knows nothing cannot rule the throne," or cannot rule alone, sorry. Cannot rule the throne is that's not what it says. So, sorry, the full quote says, "A man who knows nothing cannot rule alone." So it's sort of like disjointed, but I feel like it also makes sense if you say it all together. And I really wanted to play on the character flaws that both these characters have. And I knew that was kind of risky because these are fan favorite characters. Everybody is either like a diehard Jon Snow fan or a diehard Daenerys Targaryen fan, or both. So I knew that was risky, but I feel like these two characters are going to be a quintessential part of this new season. And, you know, Jon Snow now is King of the North, but if you saw the end of last season, you saw Bran's kind of vision. Jon Snow doesn't know the full claim that he has to the throne. Right now, he's just like the last resort, the bottom of the barrel, but like people like him. So you know, they're willing to follow him. But he actually has a very considerable claim to the throne, and I think that that's fascinating. So that's sort of where the "a man who knows nothing" thing kind of comes into play, even though it's like Jon Snow, like, you know, nothing Jon Snow is like a very common quote that's associated with him. I feel like it's definitely, you can read into that more and saying he doesn't know who he really is and who his parents really are. So that, to me, is kind of where that ties in. And then for Daenerys, this one was a little bit trickier because the end of the quote, "cannot rule alone," was iffy for me. But, you know, her power stems from, you know, these dragons that stand behind her. That's where her power comes from. And every step along the way, she's had people supporting her and helping her and advising her. And, you know, even though she's very smart and she's very brave, you know, she never would have made it this far on her own. And she's still young and she's naive, you know, and so I feel like she's a little bit too naive for the world, especially if she does make it to Westeros and attempts to claim the throne. I feel like Westeros is going to be the worst that she's seen so far. So yeah, that's my theory. Those are my predictions. I don't know. You guys comment down below what you think is going to happen in the new season. Do you think the Stark children are going to be reunited? What do you think is going to happen? I'm really, really interested to know. Let me know if you watch Game of Thrones too. I'm sure if you're watching this and you've made it this far in the video, then you do. But that is it for today's video. I hope you guys liked it. And if you did, I would really appreciate the love that you show me. Thumbs up, comments, whatever. I love hearing from you guys. And if you haven't already, make sure you enter my giveaway. I will have the link down below and in a card. And I will see you guys next week with some brand new videos.